Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Thank you for joining and tuning in today. We've got an exciting presentation for you here in just a moment and a great conversation to be had as well, and on a very important topic, and that's going to market. We know as investors and entrepreneurs alike that going to market, taking a product, a company, a product, a service, whatever it may be, is one of the most important things you can do. There's all kinds of details and methodologies and frameworks to getting this process right, and we have one of the best experts in the space to share with us how they walk through and how their framework has been put together to help companies succeed in their go-to-market process as well. Before we get to the introductions, a big thank you for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do visit latoken.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. Big thank you to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode happen. And again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Randall, welcome to the show. Just a short introduction for those who may not be aware of you, and then we'll get into today's conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. This is, I believe, my third event with you, so excited to be back and share some good tips here. This topic is on go-to-market, and my background is actually in growth. I define growth as sales, marketing, service delivery, and support. So the whole revenue cycle, essentially. I am a serial entrepreneur as well as an investor. I've worked for plenty of startups, founded plenty of startups, exited them myself, also as an investor. And I've also worked in the enterprise space. I was a CMO for Magento Commerce, helped them divest from eBay Enterprise, and then later get acquired actually within 3.5 years. At a $1.8 billion acquisition to Adobe. I now spend my time as the CRO and co-founder of Boss Capital Partners, an investment syndicate. We invest into Series C to Series A companies that have product market fit but lack operational expertise. So essentially, our expertise is in helping companies get to market, get to growth, get to scale, get to profitability. In my free time, I run a company as a CRO and co-founder called Boss Startup Science, which helps both accelerators, universities, and associations provide curriculum and a framework methodology for their companies to go through to get maximum valuation and kind of decrease that failure rate we see within startups.
Which is so incredibly important, as you mentioned. I mean, this is so impactful for startups, and if timing isn't right and just a few things are off, it can be the life or the death of a startup. And so it's great that you and your team, and both as investors and entrepreneurs, have put something like this together. So why don't you introduce to us what you and your team at Boss have put together, and I'll bring up the presentation, and then why don't you go ahead and walk us through, your framework as to going to market, and if one is able to go to market as well.
Yep. Perfect. Right. So one of the interesting things, and this is very important to set this context, is along the life cycle or maturity life cycle of a company, there's two very important phases. The first phase is I am a company providing a product or service to a customer. The second phase is I am that product or service, meaning I am selling my company to a potential acquirer. So when we say go to market, we don't just mean sales and marketing and service delivery going to market. We mean all four functional areas, which would include shared services, so HR, accounting, legal, product and engineering, as well as sales, marketing, service delivery, support. The reason for that is you have to package your company up, and your functional areas need to remain in alignment. And this is especially important at the beginning phases when you're starting your company and trying to essentially launch to a market. And then especially at the end, right, when you're trying to package your company up and sell it to a potential acquirer. So you'll notice by our name, Boss Startup Science, that we believe that there's a formula to this. We do not have a lick your finger and wait approach. We have turned this art of developing a company and from scratch, essentially from vision stage all the way to acquisition. And we've created that formula to be repeated. So at Boss Capital Partners, our investment syndicate, we have a 15 for 15 record in terms of companies we've taken on to companies we've profitably exited using this model right here. Now, through Boss Startup Science, this is going to be available to the masses through universities, associations, and accelerators. So at the end of this, if you're interested in using this actual framework, we can connect you with a Boss partner that could facilitate that for you. So Kyle, could everyone see my screen now?
Yep, full screen. Everyone can see it and you're ready to go.
Perfect. All right. So before I jump into this, I need to set the stage here with why we did this. And this is a travesty, essentially this 90% failure rate. Along with the failure rate, there's some hidden statistics that make this have an even more negative impact to global economies, to individuals, and to corporations worldwide. So just 4% of those living in advanced civilizations and living in poverty are ever able to come out of that. 98% of those that do essentially do it through a windfall. And get this, inheritance and lottery being one of those windfalls, which is just crazy. I don't know if anyone has any rich uncles that they didn't know of, but it's not a strategy to wait on something like that. Now, starting your business is one of those, and 75% do it through starting a business. However, people have hardships of their own, attention deficit disorder, dyslexia, right? There's a lot of individual issues that people have. And what a lot of people fail to realize is that being successful as an entrepreneur is not an opportunity meets timing thing. It isn't also a get lucky thing. There is a formula to doing it. And when I say doing it, it means qualifying out as quickly as qualifying in. So one of the reasons that we see 90% of businesses fail is because they don't understand very early on that the business they were pursuing wasn't destined for success, right? And we have a way to help you do that very early on in your process. And all of it's in an effort to reduce this 90% failure rate. So the first thing that we did, and we have other presentations on this, and I can go much deeper into this life cycle, but we decided to level the playing field. And so the analogy we used is never, if you had to go to a destination you've never been to before, never would you just get in your car and start driving. You would use a GPS. The GPS would ask you, where are you today and where do you ultimately want to go? And then that GPS would plot the course for you, the most efficient one. What this life cycle essentially does is help you do that. So we started this life cycle in vision before you ever have any capital. You're just a thought, right? An idea. And then we take this life cycle all the way through optimization, which is when you're shopping the company for an acquisition. Whether you do or do sell your company is up to you. But we believe that beginning with the end in mind, at least shooting towards that North Star, will help you get to profitability a lot easier. Because there are stages in between this life cycle. It's not just vision and acquisition. There's maturity markers in between that are very important. Your go-to-market should be helping you get to, but unfortunately, people aren't doing that today. And where this is the most important is the first three phases. So the first three phases are vision, product, and revenue. And these come alongside the first three validation points that you as a company need to go through before you even determine if this is something I should pursue or how much you should put into pursuing it. The first validation point is vision validation. I need people outside of my four walls, whether they're subject matter experts or potential users of my product or service, to say, yes, this vision makes sense and it could provide a benefit and you should explore it. Then I need a group of people to help me with product validation. First, I need to get the key requirements established. Then I need to validate that those key requirements work and actually do provide some sort of benefit, either saving time or reducing expenses, whatever it may be. And then I need to prove to investors after I have that product that I could gain revenue from this, that I could sell this product to people in my ideal customer profile which will give them the confidence in order to invest in me further so that I could keep from becoming a statistic. So what we decided to do is develop this formula called ABLE. ABLE stands for Alpha Beta Launch Experience. And it's a transparent, structured process that aligns company efforts and optimizes the use of capital to efficiently take your company from vision to profitability. Okay, and a very important distinction there. This isn't going to take you to acquisition. This is going to take you to profitability. So why is it important to get to profitability? As entrepreneurs and as founders in a startup, we are reliant on investor capital typically, unless we are bootstrapping. When we get to profitability, meaning I get to break even, I can cover my cost, my burn with the money that I'm bringing in from selling my product or service. At that point, what should be a big celebration point for your company, you are now less dependent on investors to move forward, meaning you are not taking on as much dilution to bring additional investors on, meaning you'll make more money at the end of the day. Very important piece. And often entrepreneurs don't think of this. So this is our process in ensuring that you do not take on extra dilution that you would have also would have had to otherwise. Now, there's a couple other benefits for this. Along the process of ABLE, you're going to be getting product market fit validation. Very important. And this is something that people often overlook or don't spend enough time ensuring that they have true product market fit. Product market fit is not just someone saying that your product or service will work. Product market fit is actually knowing how well it will work and knowing that it will work, not only from a conceptual standpoint, but actually from a usage standpoint. So if you have a SaaS product, validation means someone has used your service day in, day out for a period of time, validating that you aren't going to experience churn, right? You want to ensure that validation means retention as well. You also want to know how to bring this product to market, right? Just because you have product market fit, if you don't know how to bring it to market, you're going to die slowly, right? And so this is something that we also look at in the scope or defining product market fit. The second benefit is traction. And this is that elusive word traction, right? We've all heard this before. And I don't know about you, but I have often scratched my head as exactly what does traction mean? You could have internal traction, meaning I am setting up my cap table. I'm getting all my internal processes set up, right? That's considered traction. There's also external traction, right? I'm gaining customers. I'm gaining prospects. I'm putting up a website. I'm finishing my product. So rather than guess what actual traction is, we prefer to control that narrative by displaying traction across all of those different realms through the process of ABLE. And I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. The next benefit, and this could be the biggest benefit, is increasing investor confidence. The reason why, the highest reason why 90% of companies fail is they don't have access to capital or cash, or mismanagement of capital and cash. Essentially meaning they can't get the money in to do what they need to do to bring this great idea or service to light. So by going through a step-by-step methodical process, showing that you have validation at each strategic point, you're raising investor confidence and preventing yourself from having to spend over 50% of your time just going out and trying to solicit investors to get capital. Alongside of this, number 4 is jumpstart your company maturity. So I showed the life cycle, and I'd be happy to go through that again for anyone at a later date. This will help you move through that very methodically and on a strict schedule, which is good because forecasting is very difficult to do typically in these early stages. So by using this process, you know methodically and prescriptively exactly what's going to happen next and how to communicate that to your investors. And then, of course, one of the benefits of the life cycle is it shows you that once you go to market, you need to move very quickly because you've essentially sent a flare to market saying, I have this capability and service. And typically it takes about 2 to 3 years for a competitor to build parity or to build a competing product or service that may even be better. if you follow this process, this will help you move to go to market very quickly. And once you get to go to market, it will be like injecting steroids into your go to market plan. You will hit the next stages of maturity very quickly. All right. So how do we do this? First, the crux of this is setting up what's called a user advisory board, or a UAB, user advisory board. The important part of this is this advisory board is going to be someone that you handhold through the process in order to become your first paying customers. Okay, so they're going to validate your vision. They're going to give you your product requirements. They're going to validate your product. And then validation of product means that they would actually pay. They don't want you to take the product from them. They would pay money for it. And they would pay for it because they're using it on a daily basis or at the cadence that your product or service demands. Okay, so your UAB is typically 10 to 25 individuals across your ICP and your ICP user stories. So if you're a follower of BOSS, you know that ICP, which stands for Ideal Customer Profile, and those user stories are a big piece of your North Star, right? So you want to use your user advisory board, these individuals, 10 to 25 of them, that are within your ideal customer profile space, meaning people you would actually eventually sell to, and invite them through a white gloved process in order to become testers or advisors of your product or service. We've had a lot of success with this, and this is a lot of fun. Now, it may seem daunting. No one knows of me. Why would they accept being on my advisory board for this? The idea here is this isn't your IAB, which is made up of subject matter experts, right? Industry advisory board. Those people are people who will never be users. These people have climaxed in their career, are out of the integrator execution realm. They're thought leaders and they are visionaries. They're important to get buy-in from, right? But like I said, product market fit means that actual users will use your product or service. So that's when we turn to the UAB. By offering actual users, people that sometimes won't even make the decision to buy your product or service, but will be using it, onto your board, it involves a level of prestige for them. You create a banner, you use a nice template, make it very official and formal, as if you were inviting them to be on your actual company board. However, this is just a user advisory board. Now, the interesting thing and the great thing about what your UAB could represent is I set this up at the beginning of a life cycle for a company, meaning you start in vision and you move forward. There's a lot of people listening to this right now that are beyond the inception of their business. They have already gone to market, or maybe considering right now. You could still put a UAB together and you do the same sort of process or testing for new feature releases for your product. Okay, it doesn't just have to be at the inception. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. Now, when populating your user advisory board, it's very tempting to try to use friendlies, people that you know may have worked with in the past, but this could cause what's called a halo effect, meaning they'll just say yes to everything and they're not really going to want to hurt your feelings, so they're going to kind of blow smoke. You want to avoid having a lot of these people. It's good to get established with a couple, and hopefully some of the people that are very close to you in this would provide honest feedback, but you want to avoid that halo effect. So this would be going out to people indifferent that don't really know you yet. And you may want to provide a little bit of time to court those people. All right. So once you have your user advisory board, they are going to represent the first group of people that you're going to get your product requirements from. They've likely validated your vision. You're going to sit down with them and you're going to develop your user stories. Okay, so these are essentially stories that could be used for go-to-market in your messaging and marketing and sales, and they absolutely could be used in your product roadmap development. And the way a user story goes is, I am a type of user in a type of account that has a type of problem that wants to solve it for this reason. Right. And once you build up those user stories, you want to validate those user stories with your UAB members. All right. So they're going to help populate those user stories and they're going to also help validate them. That is going to become your requirements that you build your prototype with. All right. Once you have your prototype, you're going to want to test the prototype internally. And this is going to be your first or second communication to your investors that, hey, we are creating traction. One is I have developed and populated a user advisory board and an industry advisory board. That shows traction. You are getting people outside of your four walls interested in your product or service. At that stage of your maturity, it's okay to show that as traction. Investors will appreciate that. The next is I have gotten key requirements and I'm going into product development phase. All right, they're going to be excited about that as well. Finally, the third communication is I now have a prototype. I've taken those key requirements from my user advisory board and I've built it into a prototype. Now we are testing this internally to make sure that we spot and fix any obvious bugs that we may have. And then we're going to release this to our MVP alpha test. And this is going to be to our user advisory board. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, the key requirements that you gave us, we've now built those into a prototype and we'd like to share those with you, right? This is all in an effort to get to our MVP, minimal viable product. One of the number two reason that companies fail, that 90% of companies fail, is because they overbuild their product prior to launch. Too many features, they end up building shelfware, or they end up overbuilding and never being able to actually get that or bring that to market. So our UAB is going to be critical in determining when we've hit MVP status, right? And this is also important and intended to preserve capital while proving the basic functionality of your product. Okay. So now we have developed our MVP alpha, which it comes after prototyping, right? We fixed a couple of those obvious bugs and now we've released it to the user advisory board. They are now looking at their key requirements, essentially presented back to them. We're going to ask them to test it. Right? This testing process should take a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It depends on the sales cycle and the problem that your product or service is intending to fix, right? But you should cap it at about 3 months. Now, in order to get great feedback, you want one-on-one feedback. You want to deploy surveys. You want to have phone briefs, right? You really want to dig deep in here to understand if they didn't like a feature, why didn't they like it and what could be fixed about it. And then you have to make a decision based on level of effort. Do I fix it for the next run, which is my MVP beta, or do I hold on to it and put it in the feature roadmap for later on, right? What type of requirement is it? Now I take those requirements from the alpha testing and the feedback from it, and I build it into beta. There's two phases to beta: closed testing and open testing. Now, this is where we start to deploy some of our go-to-market tactics as well. We want to understand fully, not only does product market fit include users proving and saying that they will use this, but the other side of the business saying, I know how to bring this to market, how much to charge for it, what kind of terms to put around it, right? Very important. So closed beta testing is your last time in a closed setting with your user advisory board. This is essentially repeats the process of alpha testing with updated feature requirements. The important part and where the go-to-market comes in is within your open beta testing. So along the lines of you going through your user stories and talking to the personas and people that are going to be helping you in your user advisory board build your product, you want to determine where are their watering holes. Where could I get this information out to you as effectively as possible with the lowest cost to acquire, customer acquisition cost? And you're going to build some hypotheses around these. In your open beta testing, open beta means I'm deploying this to more than just my user advisory board. I want to start to test some of these channels. And so I'm going to take the channels. One may be Facebook. One may be an email campaign to a direct list, right? There could be social ads. There's a lot of different methods and channels for your go-to-market. You want to put out a message to your ICP, meaning the ideal customer profile and the personas that you're targeting, right? The actual users, opening up an open beta testing for a product or service that you know that is going to be germane and relevant to them. Based on the feedback that you get from that open beta testing, you could start to make some assumptions about your go-to-market in terms of the channels that are going to be most advantageous for you to launch your actual go-to-market. For example, the channel that produces the most open beta testers would be my primary channel in my go-to-market once I'm ready to go, because I know that's where the eyeballs are, and that's where the highest form of conversion is going to come. All right, so now I get to my launch. So I've taken the feedback from my beta. I now have my MVP. Okay, this is my minimal viable product. This is the minimal viable product that I could build, that I know my ideal customer profile, the personas that I'm targeting, will actually use and retain, so I won't have negative churn, or I won't have churn. This is going to allow me to effectively go to market the best way possible, right? And now I can communicate all along these levels of maturity that I am making progress, right? Once I go to market, the best way to go to market would be to have several of my user advisory board members convert from testers to actual paying users, because now they'll become referenceable, and you could use their quotes and their references in your go-to-market, and to prevent people from feeling like they have to be a guinea pig or the first person to sign up. And it's just a great way to now go to your investors and say, look, I got product requirements, I got product validation, I got revenue validation, because now I have converted my UAB members into revenue customers. And now I could effectively go to market knowing that I have the right product market fit, which includes users will actually use this, and I know which go-to-market channels to execute it through. That was a lot. But Kyle, I hope that download was helpful and will spark some interest. I'd be more than happy to go deeper on this. We have plenty of content and information. If you'd like to take a course on this, which involves both the theory so you can learn and some tactical tools that you could actually leverage, like, for instance, templates to use to court your user advisory board, schedules and communication cadences for your investors. All that is packed in there. So if you'd like us to point you in the direction for that curriculum, please reach out and we could connect you with a partner as soon as possible.
Wonderful, Randall. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you if they do want to reach out? Is LinkedIn the best? Is the Boss Startup Science School the best? Where is the best place for them to reach out to you directly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me individually. The two websites are Boss Startup Science, all one word, .com, and bosscapitalpartners.com, all one word. And yeah, you'll be able to reach out directly. Let us know that you're interested in the ABLE process, and we'll do our best to facilitate you with a partner who can get you the information.
Thank you very much, Randall. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do reach out and connect with Randall to find out if you're able to go to market and learn more about his process, along with working with his team as well. Also, a big thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in, and to the LaToken team, Hasmik and Maria, for making today's episode possible. I'm Kyle. This is Randall. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you, but also everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Take care of everybody.